Everybody, welcome back to the Insiders Lounge. Today we have another episode, and I'm joined today with Giulio. Giulio, thank you for joining us, and feel free to introduce yourself.
Pleasure, Chad, and so happy to be here speaking on your podcast. I'm Giulio Tedeschi, and I'm the CEO and founder of Tedeschi & Partners, which is a women football agency. Let me do this kind of statement. Women football, that's all about.
I love it. I think we're going to dive into it more and more as we go throughout the episode. But I wanted to ask you from the start, if we go back to, say, your childhood or maybe during high school or your school times, could you see yourself becoming an agent? Was that like always the plan, or is this something that just happened one day? You ran into a certain situation and then you became an agent?
Yeah, come on. I mean, Chad, being honest, if I have to say, it was always my plan. No, I was like, I think, almost all the young kids when you're growing in Europe, almost we all have the desire, the ambitions, and the dream to try to be a footballer. I was terrible playing, I guess. I mean, not that on the level to not even breaking the rule, but that's why I decided slightly during the years, of course, when I started my law degree at the university, of course, then I turned very strongly into this because, of course, I tried to link my passion for football in a different shape and my studies. So as a lawyer perspective, and I found, of course, sports law, contractual law, of course, very interesting. That's why I came into it. I dived into this industry into different ways. So, of course, I can say now when I made my decision was just let me tell you this short story. I was having a criminal law exam at the university. That was actually my main reason I came into law university, because I wanted to be a criminal lawyer. Then out of a sudden I decided to, of course, change slightly the area of interest I had, because I didn't found very interesting in a practical way what I was studying at university in the criminal side. And as you know, Italy, like all countries and big countries, you have a criminal law area of interest where you can work. Of course, there's a lot of material. And for me, coming from Napoli city in the south, I always wanted to be something that can try to make the difference, not to change things into my own world. But it was a summer, it was July, and I had like a glimpse, like out of the blue. It came in my mind. I was just scrolling down the channels on television, zapping, and I was caught my attention from a journalist of Sky Sports, not UK, Italian Sky Sports, that was interviewing a sports agent. So, and I said, okay, out of the blue, my eyes like blinked like this. I say, sports agents, why I never thought about that? And I was in my third year at the university, so I was saying around 21 years old, and then I decided to enter into this industry. So I started studying to become a FIFA agent as soon as possible. So I put my exams apart for a period like 6 months. My parents were not happy at all, as you can imagine, because they say, you were doing so good in university, now you want to do something about football. But then now they are my first supporters, I can say. So everything was good.
Let's get into what you're working on now. So you mentioned now you're obviously an agent. So let's discuss your agency. And then I want to get into more of we discussed the women's side right at the beginning there. So what was the switch, or were you always into the women's side of football? I'm curious how that kind of, how you approached that.
So look, continuing the story, I became a FIFA agent, was 2013, the 30th of September. Basically, once you become a FIFA agent, is like once you become a lawyer. You have your ID license, but if you do not have network, you can do anything. It's easy, no? It's hard to hear, but it's easy. So I started working as a practitioner into a law firm that was doing sports side, so sports management. And I start working with them. My former CEO of this law firm was working in cooperation with a big lawyer for the Italian football, which is called the Beppe Bozzo. This lawyer was representing with his starting and his colleagues, players like in the men's side, Claudio Marchisio, Giorgio Chiellini, Antonio Cassano, Marchetti, that was a very good goalkeeper. And they made the intermediation for Kovacic, that went to play to Inter, or Alvaro Morata from Real Madrid to Juventus. So they were doing a lot of very big deals in Italy, especially, but with international approach. So I was with them, and I found that I didn't have the right space. Of course, I was young, but I was so hungry to do something, to start doing something in this industry. And basically, I remember maybe the very first lesson I had from their side. The CEO, which is the lawyer Campana, told me, Giulio, you need to know that in this industry there are dinosaurs that doesn't want to be extinguished. So, and we are those dinosaurs. So we don't want to go out of the industry. So if you want to do something, try to specialize yourself, be different, be unique. So that's why I was at the very beginning of this statement from my former CEO, I was destroyed to say, okay, this way that I was choosing, okay, is a closer one, But then all of a sudden I understood what the deeper meaning of what they were saying to me, saying like, okay, let's try to find a different area, someone that maybe can give you this kind of approach, that a new era. And I immediately slided it switched it into the women's game. Why? You need to know that when I was at university, as a student, I was also the representative of students, working in some of these representative for students. So helping my fellow colleagues at the university in having the right approach on some study and some maths and so basically I always had this kind of vision of thoughts to try to make things change for the best. So I simply switched from university approach, from law approach into women's side. So I said, let's try to make the difference. And I saw that in this industry, in the women's game, we can be someone that can for real make the difference, have an impact. That's basically, in the men, everything is packed, is full of agencies, it's an industry which is very well developed. But in the women's, you see a lot of social battles that we all are fighting to make the industry a better one, a better place, since, we made the first step. So that's basically, it's very emotional, exciting. Maybe it's the best part, is the most exciting part of our industry, of my job, actually. So that's why it was like a natural thing, switching into the women's game.
I always hear mentioned on the NWSL side, they say rising tides lift all boats. And I think that's kind of what you're getting with there, where it feels like the women's game, everyone's almost working together to lift it up to a level where everyone in the world, in different leagues and different federations and so on, can all be at a similar level that's competitive and strong and paid well and so on. So I think that's sort of the approach that I can hear from your end as well. But what made you, it's still unique for someone to say, hey, you know what, I'm going to leave the men's game, which is much more established, which is not necessarily easier to get into, but something that's common to get into. Oh, that's just the natural way to look at things. I'm going to become an agent of a men's player and so on. What made you change and kind of have that unique approach? I know you mentioned some of your mentors and stuff telling you, hey, you should specialize, but it still takes a lot of courage to just go out and do your own thing.
Chad, I'm not selling lies. I have to say, to make this change, you need to be able to permit yourself to do so. I'm coming from a family that supported me in all the aspects, in all the possible ways. My mother and my father are two doctors, so totally different world and areas. And since they understood that wasn't my way of developing in my life to be a doctor as well, they supported me so strong. And so basically what I found is you need to permit yourself to do this, like you said, courage. Yes, it is. But also you need to have the possibilities before, because it's an industry in which you have to invest a lot at the beginning. I had to invest thanks to my family, I had to invest a lot in travels, in networkings, in connections. I mean, it's countless the numbers of times I came to places, just visiting or living into a place there, just to try to have connections, to understand their culture, to stay near and closer to potential partners for the future. So that's basically, of course, that being said, no one was paying me. So it's like, I made my own master, I would say, in a practical way, just doing a very practical approach. So it's like an old-fashioned style approach of doing agencies, because I remember that Mino Raiola, that now, of course, is not, unfortunately, anymore alive. Mino Raiola told one time to my previous CEO, and I was there in a restaurant, because he was coming here to do some private work with them, and basically he was telling the story about himself. No, I mean, an agent in the 90s, 2000 something, at the beginning of this career, of this profession, you basically become an agent. You know someone, you put in contact the B and C, A and C, and you made a deal. Now things developed a lot. It's not anymore, okay, it's all about networking. No, it's networking plus competences. You need to study, you need to know regulations and rules to try to avoid making mistakes for your clients. But long story short, Chad, it was courage, but I was helped without any doubt from my family that supported me in an economical side, and also, of course, on my psychological support. They say, that's your story, that's your life, you want to do that, let's go. Okay.
So now we've got a good overview of your story, how you got to where you are today. Let's dive into women's football. I think if we start with the European side of things, because I think, especially from my side and the podcast being more a North American perspective, we hear a lot about the NWSL, the USL Super League, and so on. But from the European side, can we get kind of a timeline of how women's football has been in the past, what it looks like currently, and then maybe where you see it going? And then we'll kind of dive into some more specific topics.
Yeah, that's, Chad, is a big question you just submit to me. Why? Just try to summarize the whole story of the women's game in a short time. It's like squeezing the facts, and I'll try to do as soon as possible. Now, just to give you a glimpse, basically, it all started, 50 years ago, we can say, generally, basically. But the very sad story of this, it's that till 10 years ago, there is no pro league basically all around Europe. And then all of a sudden, the creation of the European Games, the World Cup, of course, it was existing since 90s, of course, for the women's as well, helped a lot shaping the industry and moving and try to create interactions into the women's game. So basically, my idea I had why US, of course, has a success story into women's game in a way easier way than the European clubs, is like European countries, is because, first of all, it's a question of heritage. I say, European clubs and countries are, very strong, committed with football. Is the sports in almost all the countries in Europe, is the most practiced sports. Is the most common one. Everyone speak about football, but football is men football. It was always thought like is a man thing. Basically, it's difficult to try to build out the wall of these ideas they have. We have as Europeans, of course, because of this heritage, of this cultural thing. So what happened here was that clearly USA and US Soccer Federation found an easier space to develop. Why? Because you can just confirm this, Chad, you in US, you have a lot of national sports that are, we can say, on the same level. No, you have the NBA and you have the hockey, the ice hockey, you have the American football, actually. Then you also have soccer as well. And I forgot, of course, to mention other sports, no? But soccer is one of the sports you have.
Yep.
In Europe, that's not. Basically, you have football and then all the rest. In terms of visibility, of recognition, of quality of the games, of also infrastructures and investments into this industry. Football is here, all the other sports are there. So if you are coming in from a continent where the football that was founded was always a men's stuff, just consider that it was all about starting from college, from the UK college. They were playing with this sponge ball, and then it evolved into what we now are enjoying and watching. But the women's were not allowed to play. So, of course, just because as well, UK are still leading the market into the European game, they must have to be the first one to make the change. So that's why from UK, it all spreaded now. And now you see where we are. We are in a position in which you have a lot of leagues that are becoming or just became professionals. Professionals means same rights and same duties, of course, for players, men and women, doesn't care. So now, for example, speaking about Italian League 2022, it became professional. The Serie A, the first division. So you see, before that day, players were playing. We had the COVID, the pandemic that we all had experienced in the world. During that moment, 2019, 20, those years, the football that was not considered professional, so the amateur football, was stopped. And you were finding players that was playing at that moment in Juventus or AC Milan or Inter, top clubs worldwide. And this happens in almost all the European leagues that were not professional still. Of course, they stopped the investment during COVID pandemic. So they found themselves out of the blue without a job. They were not able, of course, to reinvent themselves. They felt professional players, even if the status was not legally a pro status. So after that, I would say COVID helped a lot us as agency and helped a lot the women's game, because stressed the point, highlighted the point and the issues the women's game still had. And from that moment, if you see, from 2020, you have an explosion of women's game. Also because it gave the opportunity to governments as well to understand, and I would say to never anymore underestimate the problems coming for still keeping a league an amateur one. So basically now we are in the process, I would say, Chad, in which things are developing a lot. There's countries that are making a lot of movements into the right way, into the right steps, but you now are living the changing times. So you are now seeing still clubs, for example, let me now jump from Italy to Portugal. You have in Portugal, you have half of leagues that are, half of clubs in the league in the first division, which are professional, in which if you have a player there, they are holding a professional contract. Half of the clubs in the same league, which are not having a pro status, because it's not centralized from federation, the status of pro or amateur, because there is no all these kind of parterre of clubs that say, okay, we all oblige all the clubs participating to the first division to be all of them pro. No. So in this case, if you are a player that a year you can play in an amateur level with amateur contract in the same league with Benfica, with Sporting, with Braga. So if you see this, that's crazy, no? Because it changed a lot also on the possibilities for a player to move from a pro contract or for an amateur contract. So it changed everything. But those things are still happening. So we are in the process to move on. And I guess, and I think, now that a key stakeholder like Porto FC entered into the market as well of the women's game. Now they started from third division and they are now climbing the stairs to arrive on the first. I guess that now they will be again. I mean, we will see very quickly, probably next year, 2 years, I don't know, but we will see again a new league like the Portuguese one becoming pro, like it's happening in Greece. Is the same. You have a lot of good clubs: Panathinaikos, AEK Athens, Olympiacos, and now entered into the women's game, and PAOK. All of these clubs that have good history with the men's side, they now are investing in women, and the government is trying helping them as well. So with some, investments. So where we are in a process in which we are just jumping. We don't see where we are arriving, but we hopefully to make the bigger as possible as a jump in order to try to, just climb 2-3 steps in a time. So that's the goal, of course, the women's game is having. Of course, attracting interest. So, I mean, stakeholders can inject monies into the game. That's basically the goal we all have here.
It's inspiring, right? I think it's like an exciting time. You mentioned where a lot of the groundwork has been laid in terms of getting a lot of the levels of leagues and federations to a professional level. And now it's about, okay, how can we continue to grow in what we already have? And you mentioned there right at the end about contracts and certain leagues like Portugal, for example, where you have half professional, half amateur still. I want to get into more of the contract discussion now, because this is something that you work in a daily basis. I'm curious, comparing a men's contract to a women's contract, I think there's quite a few differences in terms of like maternity policies and all the different financial changes, I guess you could say, compared to the two. So can we break down a women's contract, and what are some of the unique features that people might not know about?
Yes, I mean, what you mentioned about maternity policy is something that actually is making us as Italians very proud. Why? We have a club, which is AC Milan, of course, that created out of the blue this policy. They are actually the first in the world to make this policy. Basically, it's all about when a player becomes pregnant, there is automatically an extension of a contract for plus 12 months, so 1 year. So basically, these let me state something, Chad. I mean, we have a client which is called Alice Pignagnoli. She's an Italian goalkeeper, and she played as well in Serie A in the past. She's quite famous, I have to say, with her audience here in Italy. Why? Because she made now it's, I guess, a couple of years ago, an interview with DAZN, the provider, broadcast provider, and with this journalist, she was like actually signaling, a strange part of our world in women football. Why? Basically, she became pregnant, and the club put her on a choice that if you are pregnant, then we stop the contract because we treat you as an injured player for long term, and we can decide to breach the agreement. And they actually did. So she went signaling this and saying, she made also a book that is called I Just Wanted to Be a Footballer, in Italian, of course. I translated at the best. So where she was just stating it's not possible in 2020 and something to still have to make a choice. I mean, we're speaking about private life of people at the end. When you see in the men football, of course, if you are a football player playing in those kind of high levels, you don't have to choose anything. I mean, you have all the support from clubs. And what it's all about is taking care of your own athletes. If you are a club which is having a women's side, you need to take care of your athletes as well. So there, that biologically there is an age, an average, we can say 35, 36, 37. That time will arrive in which, I mean, biologically you as a woman has to decide to have a baby or not, because maybe it could be too late then. Mm-hmm. So basically she arrived in an age in which it was the time, because she felt she wanted to have a baby and a family, to enlarge her own family. So that's actually put the lights on the problem. I mean, those players, those humans are treated not as a pro, not with the right respect. Basically, this, thanks to AC Milan now, is leading the change, because those things are not even thought into the US Federation as well, or in UK as well. So AC Milan thought on a policy that can lead the change for all the others in a good way. So these kind of initiatives are the ones that we have to stress out. And I always say, just to make you laugh, I'm saying this as an Inter Milan fan. Okay, so for me it's very hard. I always say, I was joking with the sport director of AC Milan on that, to say congratulations what you did, what you all did, and it was an initiative of this powerful woman, which is leading the women's side of AC Milan, Elisabeth Spina, that actually decided to make this thing. And I mean, with her movement, and of course with all of our team, they actually are changing for the best. So you see how still it's possible to try to make the difference for real into this industry. You see, it's like I always say. You remember the Donald Duck, when Donald Duck went to the Klondike to just try to find the gold rocks. No, it's basically, it's like he was a pioneer, and we're feeling like that. I mean, being a pioneer, it's hard sometimes because you are doing something new, and especially at the beginning, some years ago, they were all in the football industry were looking at us as this thing will never be successful. These things will not work. It's just a thing of the moment. It will change. It's like a good song that we just heard, and after a few months, everyone is tired of listening the same thing. No, now we see growing, and you see also, I don't know, you play on PlayStation, you play on EAFC, and you play with the women's. And actually, you see tons of video YouTuber and influencers that are sharing, oh, I found this player, I found that one, she's strong, she's better than my Ronaldinho or than my Neymar. Those things that can be seen as a small thing, I mean, in the right way, in the right approach, are leading the change. So you see a different path now. When we speak about good players, we see that all around the football community we have a bigger audience year per year, month per month, of people who knows for real the players in the women's game. And that's actually very interesting, because at the end of the game, clubs see that, and they see that, of course, if I take on EAFC playing on PlayStation or Xbox, I have, I don't know, Marta. If Marta goes to play to a club A or to a club B, maybe if I am a club B, I will go to pick Marta in my team, to pay Marta more than club A. I start negotiating to who's paying more. Why? Because I know that Marta is famous. Everyone wants to buy maybe the shirt of Marta, or if Marta does I don't know, a partnership with a boots, a cleats, maybe with her name on or her logo, everyone wants to buy the cleats of Marta. Those things are changing the times.
Yeah, it's very well said. Like we mentioned, it's almost that time zone now where we had a good amount of change in the past, but this is now where you can get into the nitty gritty of like, okay, what can we make change? How can we improve? Even like I saw recently, Google has changed where if you type in AC Milan, now it shows men's and women's, where before, if I just typed it in, I would only see men's. Now I see, like even yesterday, I think I was looking up the Manchester United or something, and I saw the women's. I was like, oh, I'll just click on it just to see out of curiosity. And now I'm deep diving into Manchester United's team and so on. So it's funny how just little things like that make a massive difference. The other big topic that we discussed in our previous call was the UEFA plan. So 1 billion euros, I think it was called the Unstoppable Strategy. Can we dive into that one a little bit more in terms of what that actually means for the women's game, specifically in Europe itself?
Yes, that's actually the UEFA plan, of course, as being UEFA is focused on the European game. But the good thing to state, the first thing to state, is that is 1 billion investment. So basically, is the biggest investment ever that UEFA made, not for the women's game, but generally. So it's such a big amount, of course, of resources coming. And I mean, at the beginning, the ones that were not so focused, I would say, or optimistic on this kind of investment, they say, yeah, but it will be everything going for only the good ones. So it will not change that much. It's not going to afflict in a positive way the lower ones. That's not true. Why? Because those billion, first of all, is a plan that goes from 2024. So now because it was announced a few months ago, 2024 to 2030. So it's a 6-year plan in which they go investing these billion euros, and they want. I mean, I would say the purpose of this investment from the president of UEFA suffering, it's clear. The statement is we want that women's football will become the best and the most practiced game in the whole European countries. So that means that it has to start from the young sector, from the youth, from developing from the youth. So this means monies and, of course, resources and infrastructures to create in your neighbor, beach and whatever, a gym, you have to have the opportunity to start creating talent. Why? If you see, Chad, I just mentioned Marta. Marta was one of my favorite. I remember when I became closer to women's game, I was seeing Marta playing. Marta was like Neymar. I mean, she was so skillful. She's a baller. She's a baller, actually.
Yeah.
Very, very nice. Now, of course, the age is, of course, played the game. And so, of course, near to retirement is normal. But she was so, so good. And the first statement everyone, or mostly all of us was having, without having a bad presence or a bad thought on that, but was, oh, look, she seems like a man. This thing, this is a kind of a discrimination, if we see. But the reason is why. I understood when now still people that are coming with us and are having networking with us that are coming from outside women's game, they are saying this as a good thing to say, hey, now we see a lot of players, they seems like a man. This thing, of course, is strong to hear, is not that good, but in a sense, I understand what they are saying. If you think that Marta and players like her, once they were young, 5, 6, 7 years old, they didn't have the opportunity to try and to train with a professional coach, with teammates that were women like them. A lot of them, mostly of them, the 34, 35, 36 years old now players, when they started, they were playing at school with the men. They were playing like this for fun. If they were lucky to find some other of their own, schoolmates. So everything was not prepared for that. And so basically, also the technique was afflicted a lot, because you see, when you now go speaking with a coach of the youth, what they say is very important, our job. Look at Ajax, look at Atalanta, for example, look at Sporting Lisbon, that you have the scarf on your back. Those clubs that are focusing themselves in developing players, they are called a development club. No, they are the ones who develop players, and they then get revenues selling the player with very high stack of monies. Okay, those clubs are making their own philosophy on that. Which is the philosophy? I take a player since he has 5, 6, 7 years old. I grow his skills, and I see him as a complete player, and I can sell him, or I can pick for me, but I can sell the player, I can trade the player, I can make a market on that. Basically, this thing doesn't happen till now, basically, in the women's game. So now we see good clubs with good mentality and good philosophy that are starting having this approach since few years, like building up their own player at home. So now you don't see that much of young players coming out from the cantera of Barcelona or the young team of the Primavera for Italian clubs. Why? Because there was not the right methodology applied. Now things are growing. So it's normal. If you now think on, in maybe 10 years, 15 years, we will see a lot of talents that can be potentially way stronger than the actual talents and top talents in the women's game. So where those things are leading us, the game, to equalize during the years. Because, of course, men's football is here, no? In terms of quality, in terms of individual technical qualities, no? But women's game was there. You see my hand is over there. Now you see during the years they are growing a lot. Because of that, there is a cultural thing that is growing a lot. There is a training dedicated to the young, the very young ones. So now the good thing is that you see a young person, a young woman, like a daughter of someone who say, I want to be a footballer. She's 4, 5, 6 years old. Okay, she can find the nearest football team for the women's in which they can help them to grow. No, so that's basically a big step, which is actually happening, and no one seeing outside the industry, but we see. So you will see in 10 years a lot of very strong potential talents that will come out of the industry. Yeah, will come out of the blue.
What are the youngest age groups in a professional environment? So if you take like a Juventus, for example, they've got the first team as in the professional team. How does the like academy structure work on a women's side? Is it still very much like grassroots and then eventually leads up to playing professional? I know in the US we kind of have the college system, so it's a little bit different, but I'm curious on the European side, how does that work?
No, now things are actually they are copying the model of the men. So it's very, very well, I will say, developed. So you now see in a club, you will have under 7, under 9s, under 11, under 12, under 14, under 15, under 16, under 17. And then you have, in Italy, you have Primavera, or in England, you will have the, I don't know, Chelsea B, those academies. So you now are reducing the gap a lot, because now the approach is actually, for the biggest ones, is actually the same of the men. As much as the club is putting resources into the women's game, of course, as soon as you see the same kind of divisions for the youth. So it's just to mention AC Milan, because we're speaking about AC Milan, they have all the ages group. So it's not like 12 years old gonna go playing with the 17 years old. No, it's divided. So it's a controlled growth, step by step, like it's happening in the men. And you have dedicated staff members in the women's. That's actually the only bad thing of the whole story, because I mean, you see, myself, I'm an enthusiastic. I'm defining myself an enthusiastic of my job and what I'm doing. But let's stress where we are now. You have the pro teams that have, of course, pro funds and pros availabilities on the market, and also maybe I would say a pro mentality to work on that, starting from grassroots, arriving to play on the first team. And so they have resources and they have structures to do so. So also staff members, and I mean, I will say it's a world thing which is growing in the right way. The other ones, the amateur, you have someone that has a very good mentality but doesn't have funds, or someone who has funds because maybe he's a local investor with monies but doesn't have the right mentality. So those things are leading probably the game to arrive in a point, probably in the next 10 years, I'd say, where you will see always more and more amateur team gonna go disappearing, or create like a fusion between each others to try to resist to the impact of the professional clubs. Because it's clear, once Real Madrid comes into the game, if you are I will say amateur team, which in an independent team, which is only dedicating to the women's, or you are doing by your own the whole stuff, and the methodology you're having, it's like Ajax or Atalanta or Sporting. So you will become a development club to still survive, or if you want to compete on high levels, you will not succeed because you will not have the funds and the monies to do so. So it's we call them like the white mosquitoes, the very rare ones that maybe are not professional, doesn't want to be pro, doesn't want to be incorporated into a pro team. They have funds. For example, London Lionesses is like this in England. They have funds. They are independent club from London only for women's. and they are still doing very well. So actually, they are every year fighting to go in the first in the Premier Division. So actually, this can be possible, but as you see, it's very rare. I mean, in the whole Europe, I can mention London Lionesses and probably I don't know. I don't think so. We have any other kind of clubs like them, you know. So that's give you the dimension of how difficult it is, how struggling is for an amateur club to still survive. But just to answer to your question, to finish the answer, of course, now you will see, you will have for the youth all the sectors like in the men, depending on the monies of the club.
And when you bring up like London Lionesses, or I think it's much more common in North America where you have single entity clubs where they're separate to an MLS club, for example, or something else. How would you compare the two, and which one would you say is more beneficial for the women's game? Something that's individual on its own, or something that's connected to a club? So you take like a Liverpool has the men's and women's team, same badge, same everything, same jersey. But then London Lionesses would be completely different, or on the NWSL side, also very different. I'm curious from your perspective, what side you see is beneficial, or does it not really matter and it's just all good to grow the game in general?
I will say, yeah. I mean, your very last statement, I mean, is maybe the right one. I mean, there is no one single correct answer. It depends. Generally saying and generally talking is normal that if you want to support the game, the women's game, and you have professional clubs that are investing monies, so the step which is important to do, to be clear, is that a pro club doesn't have to be only a pro club. For example, we have Napoli, the pro club, of course, for the men. They actually are not interested in working in the women's game. So the Napoli Football Club for the women, which is playing in Serie A at the moment, is an independent club. They are, I mean, trying to do good things, but of course, so it's very important that a pro club wants to invest into women's game, because if you wear the shirt for the women's of Liverpool, and then Liverpool is not investing, and you are maybe, I mean, lacking and staying in the last position on the table, that's not good to see. So it's not only, you know, politically correct move for the clubs to say, yeah, come on, we support women's game, and then let's wear those shirts, and I don't care about you all girls. No, those things has to work for real. And you see the results after a few months if a club is investing or not. So clearly, the most important and maybe the easiest thing to say is that it has to be a club which wants to invest for real in the game, in the growth of the game. So like these London Lionesses are more than welcome, of course, because it's a good example of a club which is independent, which is putting monies into it, which is investing in the right way. On the other side, looking on the times we are living now, Chad, is normal that I would say I see those clubs becoming always more and more rare into this industry. So it's easy to see. Look on the scarf you have. If you want to attract people to go to the stadium, if you want to attract people to watch a game on television, you will take an independent scarf of, a club of you don't know, of course, or you see, I'm just reading Liverpool, Aston Villa, Borussia, Inter. Come on, all of them are famous clubs. And if you link a product to those companies, clearly it could be a very successful and easier thing. Oh, I'm going watching Inter, the women's side. Yeah, I'm going watching Inter. Come on, I will see. I support Inter in the men. A lot of people goes to do this kind of thought. No, I'm supporting Borussia Dortmund, so I'm a supporter of everything which is Borussia Dortmund related or linked. So I'm now starting following on Instagram Borussia Dortmund women. And I'm finding myself in Dortmund for a business meeting. Let me see. Borussia is playing out. Is playing away. Okay, I have the women's game. Is cheaper. I go seeing Borussia. I will still listening the chants at the stadium. I will go. Maybe I will buy a shirt because I go to the shop. I enjoy a little bit. I will take care of my supporter side, even if it's not for the men. So a lot of supporters are coming in from a secondary door to the women's game. We have to be realistic, of course. if we have to attract people to the women's game, it has to be also and especially thanks to the big names you have. You cannot create a legacy with London Lionesses that can be stronger than the legacy of people that supports Barcelona or Arsenal. Arsenal is doing 65,000 supporters for the women's game. Come on, 65,000. Because you have a strong community of Londoners who are supporting Arsenal, and then imagine how many how many Gunners supporters you have worldwide. So if you are an American, which you are familiar with the women's game for the football, oh, I'm taking 10 days in London. I'm going one of those days to see Arsenal women. I don't care. I mean, I'm American. I have the right approach, the right mentality. So this is the kind of thing to think about. So clearly, I'm propending. I'm going to the side of the women's clubs. Clearly, that has to link themselves to the name of the big ones from the men. But of course, like I said, if there is an enthusiastic with money's investor like London Lionesses, more than welcome.
Yeah, I have the perfect example. When I went to the UK, I was in London. I was looking for some game that I could go watch in. I think it was on a Friday or something, and there was no men's games on, or I couldn't find tickets. Something went wrong, and there was a WPL game. I went and watched Spurs and West Ham. It was unbelievable. The fan environment was just as strong, not necessarily in a large stadium, but I think it was even cooler because it felt I was closer to the players. I was closer to the game itself. Like it was a totally different experience than anything I had done before. So I think that's the perfect example where it provides new opportunities for different types of fans and different demographics that might not be interested in men's football.
And look, Chad, what you're saying, of course, makes me very happy. I made my own when I was living in London. I went to see a lot of women's football game, all the ones I was able to, even because, of course, I was studying there to do a master, and then it was cheaper, of course, way cheaper than going to a game of the men. And I was there, and I enjoyed a lot, because at the end of the game you will see also, like you said, demographically, I mean, people that went to the game were families, and I mean, you will see a good environment, a familiar one, the right one, the positive one. The values of sports, they were all in it. So it was very nice to see that. I remember I went to see an Arsenal Stadium game with the women's game, and at the halftime, I was having a burger with some French fries in one of these local shops with the mother and the father of one of the players that was playing there in Arsenal.
I had the exact same experience.
You had the same. You had the
same. I was sitting beside one of the players' dads, and we started talking about how her career, how she's been, everything. I was like crazy. Like,
yeah, that's actually very. And this is bringing back supporters like you, like me, near and closer to the game. Because maybe if we have to say something bad on the men's football, from my perspective, my personal perspective, is that it became too much like a Versailles. It's like a golden cage, and you cannot be even able to shake your hand with your hero. It's not possible. You have to know this person to ask for a favor, to have a shirt. There is a list of thousands of people that wants to have a shirt from a player from, I don't know, Hemmingson from Tottenham Hotspur. So it's so difficult, and they are not staying because they have so strict agreements with sponsors as well. You have to speak with that. You have to go to the journalists. So those things are putting maybe the supporters, simply the supporters, not in the center of the game. Supporters you are there, good. You are not, okay, I have some stuff to do. In the women's game, if you have supporters, and when you have now that we see, you have supporters experience that are very enjoyable. You have a match day experience, which is very enjoyable. And then at the end of the game, you see the players that are going, speaking with some of them, shaking hands, making pictures, because they are happy and they are proud of being one of the first ever generation to have the opportunity to have a picture and a selfie with supporters that they are wearing the shirts, and not necessarily they are women. I'm more than excited when I see young men who's wearing the shirts of a women footballer. That's amazing. I mean, years ago was not even thinkable, but that's crazy in a good way.
We've been speaking about a lot of the big giants, I guess you could say, the UK or the US, that are really doing incredible things that were early on in terms of turning their focus onto women's football and growing the game. Who's maybe a sleeping giant or a region on the rise, that somewhere where you can see there's a lot of potential for growth, and that people might not be realizing is there, like, and that has an extremely high level of football, or capable of really high level of football on the women's side?
You speak about the country specifically, you say?
Country, yeah, or a league, or maybe a club that just you see, this could be interesting.
Let me take it and stating that I'm telling this not because I'm Italian, but definitely Italy. Italy is one of the sleeping giants. Italian football is not a country; it's one of the biggest countries ever. Is a club, is a country that won in the men's game a lot of time the World Cup. I guess it's second only to Brazil, I guess. But I mean, we're speaking about a country that made history in men's game, and a lot of players that was also winning Golden Ball. And I mean, we had also on a club level here the best players ever here. What we are doing now, we are seeing still a league, the first division and the second one in Italy, in which you will see that the Italian Federation is not giving the right attention, is not giving the right assistance to this movement. Once they made the professional game in 2022, when it all became professional. I remember it was after the World Cup, when Italy, I guess, if I remember well, lost against Holland. But they played very well, and they were still all amateur in that year. The Italian prime minister invited, and the Republic president invited the whole Italian female football team to speak on the parliament, and the former captain of the Italian team said, "Look, we did everything we could, but we are still amateur. We train, most of them, we train in the night. We train 3 times per week. We don't have the right rights. We don't have recognition. We don't have salaries. So we made everything we could. Help us in not making this movement dying." So because of that, there was a big wave of interest around the Italian movement for women football, and it all led to became a professional football since 2022, only for the first division. But what the players was requiring, and actually I say we too, is to be considering this point in 2022 not as an arriving point, but as a starting point. This point, I mean, the feeling we all have is that the federation gave the professionalism to the first division, and that's all. There is no much revenues to ask and to require even for more. So that's all. You had what you wanted, what you required. That's all. That's not all. I mean, if you see, Italy was here, was jumping around. Now we are going back again, because clearly, if you have a league which is a first division that from next year will be 12 clubs, till now is 10 clubs. If you see small number of clubs means small competition, there is not that much interest. Now they're trying to grow, become 12 clubs, but the very big difference will be making also the Serie B, the second division, a pro league, and also having sustainable efforts from clubs. Because we were speaking before, Chad, of the amateur clubs. Imagine in Italian Serie A, you still have club like Napoli, which is not professional, and in Serie B you have a lot of them that are not pro. You have to help them, however they are struggling with the expenses of growing expenses. Why? The level in the whole Europe and worldwide of the women's game is growing. Growing the level, growing the quality, better players, I would say, requires better salaries. So if you 5 years ago were able to take in Serie B a player with 600 euros, now you have to pay the double of this amount to have a decent player. To have a good player, you have to pay 2.3, 2.5 thousand net per month in the second division, giving a real salary to a player. Okay, because why? They are simply moving around Europe and across the world, so they know how other leagues are working. So if you want to keep me out of Germany or France or Spain, where I'm earning 3,000 net per month, I'm not going to Italy to take 700 or 1,000. If you want me, yeah, I will be more than happy to enjoy the Italian life. But let me pay myself 2,000 for my services, at least. That's the thing. So if federation is not helping on a central system, those clubs say we don't have monies to do so. So where we are, that's the problem. So the sleeping giant is, to me, unfortunately, definitely Italy, I have to say. Yeah.
We'll wrap things up here with some quick fire questions. One that I think leads quite well into what you were just saying there. If we look at the next, let's say, decade, five to 10 years, what's one word that describes this next time zone in women's football? Do you have like one word? It can be in Italian or English, just one word that you can like say, yeah, this is going to be the next 10 years.
Challenging, I would say. It's challenging. It's challenging because maybe a couple of words. Challenging is the first came out of my mind because there's still a lot of steps to develop. The ones who think that women's game is established now is having a wrong thoughts. Is a mistake. We are working all together, and when I say we, I'm speaking about all the stakeholders. We have to act as a unique team. Like stakeholders means agencies works together with clubs, works together with federations, work together with associations, works together with players. We all together need to be united to get this game going, leveling up. So challenging, definitely, because at the moment, like we were speaking about, there are clubs who are struggling, there are others who are changing. Of course, yes, but I would say also exciting, because again, changing. Changes in life are always something that we don't have to be afraid of. It's something that we have to be prepared, if it's possible, in order to take the best from a change. So it's a chance as well. No, it's a chance for all the ones. I'm always thinking on the young players we are having, for example, in the agency. No, we in the agency actually represent around 160 players worldwide with 37 different nationalities. So I say, imagine being a player that we represent now, and she's 18 years old. She doesn't even imagine in 15 years, when she is still playing at 30, 32, 33, where we will be leading off about this game. So maybe she will go having such a good contract and good conditions and good visibility. She will have companies outside of football which is contacting us to get contract for her, to sponsoring on television or newspapers or whatever. So things could be way better than where we are. We all have to work in the right direction. So the ones that are not for real taking care of the industry has to be out of the industry. But I guess we are moving into this direction.
No, I like that. Challenging and exciting. That's a good two words to summarize it. For you personally now, what's one like book or movie or something that you've seen recently that has inspired you?
There is a book, there is a movie that of course inspired me. Inspired is hard to say, but definitely intrigued me, which is a famous movie for the agency stuff, which is Jerry Maguire. Now, which was, if you remember, was 1992 when they released this movie, and Tom Cruise was being an agent, a sports agent. what I found that always interesting, I watched this movie with my wife Roberta, which is actually working in the agency with us as a legal expert. So she was, without knowing, interpreting the role that the woman in the movie had with Tom Cruise. So basically, what I always thought was they were taking care of of thousands of athletes of different sports, because the US approach for an agency in the 90s was this one. And I remember that was Tom Cruise was saying in the movie, as a Jerry Maguire, saying, I'm taking care personally of around 70, 75 clients. What inspired me in a different way, of course, this was happening. I mean, I'm 89 born, so 1989. The movie was released 1992. Okay. So that way, that approach to me is not possible to work anymore now. Players needs to feel that they have someone for real taking care of them. So this led us to be not only me and Roberta, but we are 16 of us working in different shapes and ways, and in the agency. We are a lot of us. We are a big agency for the women's game. 16 of us means everyone needs to dedicate. Meanwhile, I'm speaking with you, Chad, is because I took the time, and I knew we had the time now. I had the time to, find my own space to speak with you and having these very interesting podcast with you. In the meantime, of course, players need some assistance. There are Roberta, there will be Alex and Vlad and Samuele, and all of them working between men and women in the agency. Everyone is trying to take care of a piece of the agency. So maybe the thing that inspired me on that movie was, okay, that was the 1992 approach. Now we have to make these things works in 2025 today, I say. But every year I try to see myself and the whole agency following the times. We have to be stating here in the right times. We don't have to, still stay in the past. However, we will be the past. So that's basically maybe what inspired me the best. Of course, not considering the human side of it, because at the end of the game, then if you remember, I don't know if you ever saw that movie.
Yeah, I've watched it. Yeah,
you watched the movie, and basically, if you remember, Tom Cruise remained with only one client. No, that was, I guess, Cuba Gooding Jr., the actor that was doing the sport person that was American football, and basically he understood. Tom Cruise understood that maybe the most important side is the human side of the whole thing. The one thing that made these client, these players, stay with him was that they created a connection. And I have to say, we in the agency as well, we will lose clients year per year, like we are earning clients every week we are earning clients. What is important and is not easy to do is creating that unique link. These kind of connections that sometimes are like, normally you go to take a beer or a coffee to a bar, you start speaking with someone, you create good network, good connection, and you feel on your skin, this person is a good one. I have good feelings. Those things happens in the same way in our agency. So we try to still stay human, not treat clients as numbers. That's very important from my side.
Yeah, the human connection in life in general, not even business. I think human connection is why we're here on this planet, to meet others and learn their story. And this is why I do what I do. I love meeting people and getting to know them more. So Giulio, thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. If you have any last words, and then we can wrap things up.
I say, first of all, thanks to you, Chad, and the one who are watching the podcast. Just one last word. Do not stay on the surface. Just go deeper into things like I did. And I created my own life, actually working, and not only working, but private life. Just because of that, I went deeper into things. That's basically, long story short, my only last word.
I love it. Thanks again, and we'll speak soon, okay?
Speak soon. It was a pleasure.
Cheers, grazie.
Bye bye.
Ciao.
Ciao ciao ciao.
Wanna hear